Remember that they're changing my voice. This is part 2. I urge you to see part 1. I want you to see this part on the screen of the subtitles, the annotations from the video I was referring to in part 1, which is by someone named William Swain, who's the president of the California Policy Center. And I'm not familiar with what that is exactly, but he's some kind of an official, and on California Insider they tend to have officials on the show. Okay? And so he pointed out that there was organized crime and that there's gangs, etc., that were exploiting the system, which is not easy to do, right? For that kind of fraud, you'd expect the FBI and law enforcement and people to crack down on them, the state to crack down on them and teach them a lesson about robbing the state, right? Because they don't play that. That's like if a street gang tried to take out a politician or something, there would be consequences, right? They get raided, they probably get roughed up and they'd be set up by other gangs and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm not sure how much you people know about this stuff, but I think Americans are somewhat familiar with it from whatever experiences they have on the streets and so on and so forth. And for nothing else, it's even the movies to some degree, in some kind of exaggerated form or some kind of Hollywood form where you see the collaboration with the prison guards and the gang members and the police who are corrupt, in LA or wherever. Okay? That's how it works, right? It's very political, right? There's prison politics, there's street politics, there's politics, mainstream politics, and it overlaps, And so that's why there's gang members helping them out, for those of you who are a bit confused about that. Okay, it's politics where they're controlled, both parties are controlled, all the parties are controlled. Anyone who's anyone in politics, in the mainstream view, is controlled, okay? There's a president who said something to the effect of, if something significant happens in politics, you better believe that it was planned that way, okay? And that's why people are targeted. And in my case, it's really the central target because it's right there in the Masonic wordplay, the clan wordplay, the occult wordplay, the occult cut-ups, the chaos magic, right? The magic spell and the spelling, right? Alpha, bet, okay? Alpha versus beta, what have you, where you get gang, stall, king. And also gangs talking, right? Gangstalking, gangs talking. And it's not just street gangs, right? It's like corporate gangs, right? They're aware with the whole gang, right? And so political parties are like gangs, social clubs are like gangs, right? It's like a saying, right? That the whole gang's there. It could be talking about a group of kids, right? But in this case, it's talking about political, it's talking about corporate, it's talking about streets, talking about organized crime, what have you. So at the end of this video, I'm going to also show you some clips that, by themselves, they don't really prove gang stalking, but they show you that they corroborate my testimony to some degree, right? I get a lot of these one headlight people, and I don't want to, always kind of record things, right? It's very difficult for me to do everything I have to do, especially when I live in unincorporated Morgan Hill in the hills, to kind of record everywhere I go. I drive a long distance, I've gone through many cell phones, what have you, but I get a lot of these one headlight cars, and I get, people briding me, and I have an eye condition. Speaking of that, I just ran out of memory on my phone, and they often hack my phone, and it takes up more space on my phone. They do things where they play some kind of memory on my phone game. They're like playing a sick game with me, right? And they fume me, and they kind of cause me to leave places when the fumes get too intense. Basically, it goes like this. Like, I get fumed like all the time, right? And sometimes it gets really intense. It's not just in the car. Some people might want to chop it up to, some car problem. No, it's my father's car, my old car, this car, you name it, right? In a rental car that I rented, it was like a rental, like a compact SUV or something, okay? And so on and so forth, right? And I also get fumed in stores to some degree, okay? I've had somebody at one of these stores say, hey, I smelled it too, right? And I know how you feel about that, And I have people on record testifying that I get fumed. Also that, there's the black helicopter I'm going to put at the end of this video. And I'm having trouble speaking, right? Difficulty speaking is like a side effect of various substances, right? Alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamines, psychiatric pills. It's a typical kind of symptom of something when you have a mind-altering, when someone hits you with a mind-altering substance or drug or material, okay, you tend to have difficulty speaking, right? Whenever your brain function changes, when your brain's trying to communicate to itself, it has difficulty and it affects your speaking. And you could break down the brain into components and say frontal lobe and this, and this, but you're going to see that that's how it works no matter how you slice it. Okay, real quickly before I forget, I've been talking about gangs for a long time, and it's in the first 10, 12 minutes of that video of California Insider, which only gets like 30,000 views per video typically, right? At least by the time I get to it or so. It talks about gangs and also talks about the California Medical Association. Well, both my parents are doctors, right? And my father's a brain surgeon. And the California Medical Association, cracks down on brain surgeons, right? And doctors. And so it's saying that, that the government's cracking down on the California Medical Association, which in turn, it's implied, right? It's like an implied threat. One might infer from this that it's aimed directly at me first and foremost, right? Because of this importance of my challenge, my identity. There's a lot of things that would suggest that. And there's some things that would suggest that that's not the case, okay? So it really depends on who, what, when, where, how, why, who has the means, motive, and ability. We got to look at the facts to figure that out, okay? Without further ado, here's some clips.